So this one's just a quick one for the whole book of Esther, just sort of big picture. I know you've already started it, but just to help put it in context as we're reading through it, um, this is happening sort of in parallel to early Ezra. So we have already read that the the Jews, the people of God, were already sent off, right? They were taken into Babylon, which becomes Persia, and then they in Ezra, they're trying to go back and build Jerusalem, but only part of the people are going back, right? So there's still many Hebrews that are in exile at this point. And it's also just after much of Daniel, right? Daniel happens through that transition. So it's not too long after that. And sort of big picture, like this is the only book in the Bible that doesn't directly mention God, right? You can see him at work through the story, but it's not mentioned specifically as you're reading through. Um, but what you sort of are seeing is a continuation of a story. So back a long time ago in First Samuel, there's a story about Saul. And Saul was supposed to, it's a pretty key story actually for Saul. He was supposed to go in and take over the Holy Land, a piece of the Holy Land, where he was supposed to destroy the Amalekites. Sorry, my pronunciation, the Amalekites, right? And Jesus, God specifically says, go in and destroy them. Like, don't leave them anyone left. This is a judgment on them, right? So Saul was chosen by God to be a tool of judgment. And he said, make sure that you kill all of them and their animals. And he says, this is meant to be final judgment on these people. They've had a long time. And if you read the whole story, it says they had many years of this sin, and you are going in as judgment. So Saul goes in, but he doesn't do that, right? He doesn't kill all the animals. He takes the best animals and he leaves the king, um, Agag, and he leaves them alive, right? So what you're seeing here when you come into Esther is actually a continuation of that story, right? Those people should have been judged by God, and therefore, in theory, wouldn't be an issue for God's chosen people anymore, right? But as you come into Esther, what you're seeing at the beginning of the story is it's sort of subtle, but there are some contrasts to some of the other stories, like so Mordecai, typically they use these names. We're in Genesis. They use these names as very important, right? So his name is a worshiper of Marduk, which is obviously a pagan god. And when Esther comes into the king's household, it says that she was given a special diet, and she ate that special diet, and that she hid that she was a Jew, right? So if you contrast that to Daniel, when Daniel arrived as an exile, right? He was clearly Hebrew, and he actually refused to eat their food, and that's one of the stories that he was blessed because of that, right? So it's not like oh, these people are horrible evil, but I think you are meant to notice that early in the story, they're sort of pushing back a little bit. They're kind of like, well, we're hiding a little bit that we're Jewish and we're eating their food and we're doing whatever. We're sort of fitting into their culture a bit. And then what you see is a little note that says Mordecai in verse 2:5, son of Jair, son of Shimei, son of Kish, a Benjaminite, um, which is the same tribe as Saul. And then you go on a few pages, and Haman arrives, chapter 3, and it says 3:1. All this took place. King Ahasuerus honored Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, right? So that means he's a descendant of King Agag that should have been taken out by Saul. So this battle has gone on now because of this. And you see by the end of the story, like Agag, the descendant of King Agag, is trying to wipe out the Jews. And in the end, as Mordecai does refuse to bow down, and as Esther does rise for a time such as this, which is what the whole, yeah, the main theme of this that everybody talks about. You were born for a time such as this, right? So Esther does rise to the situation, and then you see God at work. And God sees the situation. He has the king read the rolls and notice that Mordecai saved him, and it sort of turns that on Haman. And the whole story kind of twists as God twists it around. And by the end of the story, um, the Jews are able to fight back and protect themselves. And it sounds kind of violent that, they're destroying all their enemies. But I believe the way that this is written is that is a final culmination of this story that started in First Samuel with Saul. This is what should have happened. And instead, that judgment wasn't carried out because Saul was unfaithful. And this battle goes on into Esther before it reaches its conclusion. So it's sort of a subtle, interesting take on some of the stuff that's in there. So you can obviously read Esther, and you should, and take the typical learnings. But I sort of thought I'd put that in context, sort of historical and other pieces of the Bible that sort of make the big picture story as you're reading it kind of interesting, at least to me. So I hope you enjoyed. So be blessed.